Hey, Bob.
Good
Good
morning.
afternoon, everyone. I'm Olesya Drozdova, Chair of Global Business Alliance at Orange County Realtors. Thank you for joining us today for our virtual tour of the world in 2020, Global Real Estate Adjustment. With me today is Bob Hartman, GBA Charter member, and together we will be moderating today's event. Bob?
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I am Bob Hartman, and welcome to our Fall Forum. Before we get started, we would like to thank the following global councils: West San Gabriel Valley Realtors, San Diego Association of Realtors, as well as Greater Los Angeles Realtors for helping us promote this event. Gary Thomas and Jenny Field for their support, as well as our speakers from 3 different continents for joining us today. We would also like to thank Orange County Realtors for sponsoring 5 $50 Amazon gift cards that will be sent to the lucky winners of our gift card giveaway game, which will be played throughout this webinar. Finally, special thank you goes out to all of you, our attendees, for joining us from the United States and overseas on this unusual virtual tour of the world. Thank you. Olesya?
Today's event is brought to you by Global Business Alliance at Orange County Realtors, a group of volunteers which mission is to create educational programs and partnerships to raise fellow realtors awareness of global clients in our local markets, to provide information that promotes better interaction, understanding, and cooperation across cultural lines within real estate profession, and to use NAR resources and cooperative agreements to create business relationships with the international real estate community. I want to say a special thank you to Global Business Alliance members, Gita Amiri, Dwayne Beisner, Craig Warner, Joyce Ando, Christina Fu, Bob Hartman, Spencer Hu, Lata Jobanputra, Angela Lee, Kana Makino, Yami Martinez, Maureen McGrath, Rana Mohuddin, Laurette Murphy, Sylvia Prada, Mary Rampone, Tati Rochelle Murphy, Tina Vo, and Lisa E. Everyone who works tirelessly on making our real estate industry here locally more global. We brought to you over the years presentations like spring and fall forums, or presentations at our own Rexpo events, educational offerings like how to work with Chinese clients or opportunities in Latin America. And these are just 2 of a whole list of different offerings. Designation classes like CAPS and At Home with Diversity. We put together a global registry that helps us stay in touch with all of you. Trade mission opportunities, NAR and CAR reports on housing and international transactions. For all this, our Global Business Alliance has been awarded several times with the NAR Global Achievement Awards, and we received a Silver Award in 2017 and Gold Award in 2 consecutive years, in 2018 and 2019. And finally, I would like to touch on what will be happening here today. So we will have a gift card giveaway, and I would like to share with you what we will be doing and what the rules are. So first and foremost, please pay attention. Answer questions via chat when presented. First person to answer correctly wins. You must be present at the end to receive your prize. So what will happen at the end? We will call the name of the winner, and we will ask you to respond in the chat box back to us. And finally, you will receive your gift card and you're welcome to spend it. Compliments of Orange County Realtors. So with this, I would like to start with our first question of the day. This is a copy of our flyer. Please take a close look and put in the chat box, what are the 3 landmarks shown on the event flyer? Do we see what's happening in the chat box, Bob?
I do see some of them in the chat box.
Very nice. So do you think we should give like additional 30 seconds? A minute?
Someone's got it. I see it right there. Yes.
Okay, but
You can
call the
cut it
name.
off.
The name will be called at the end.
Well, there was someone at the top up here that got it. Diane McDonald, I think, but I'm not certain.
We are not calling the name. We are calling the name at the end. Don't ruin it.
I ruined it. The first one, but she has to stay with us to get it.
But you see, now you see that it is not fixed. It's in real life and in real time, even though it's virtual.
Yep.
I think it's right about time to start with our main event.
Yes.
So let's get our world tour started. It is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker. He moved to the Orlando area from New York City in 2000. His passion for real estate began in his mid-20s when he purchased his first investment property in Pennsylvania. He is a member of both the National Association of Realtors CAPS faculty and the Florida Realtors faculty. In 2015, he seized the opportunity to help open up, build, and manage a real estate office that has attracted 150 associates since then. And while he enjoyed the challenges of managing a vibrant brokerage, he found his true calling when he transitioned to his current role in the firm as both a practitioner and a designated coach and mentor to his fellow sales associates. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Zola Serenches. Zola, it's all yours.
Thank you so very much. Can you stop the screen sharing so I can share mine? Awesome. Thank you so very much. And first of all, I would like to just really take a moment and first of all, thanking you all from Orange County, all the leadership and all the people who actually made this happen, including you, Alessia, Bob, Ron, Maureen, and all the people who are part of this Global Council, Global Business Alliances, what you have in Orange County. And I'm extremely grateful to be able to present, front of all of you today and giving you guys a little snapshot what's going on. And it's just really nice to be with you guys. And you guys are so professional. You've been planning this out and you're doing so much, you put so much work into this. So this is the time what I would like to actually ask everyone, if you could, to give a huge round of applause for our leadership team, Bob and all of them from Orange County who made this happen. So thank you so very much for this. These things are, I know we are all zoomed out. I know that we are all like, have Zoom fatigue, trying to jump off some building, when we have to go onto another Zoom call because it's just so many Zooms. However, at the end of the day, it is what it is. And we just really have to adopt what's going on in our current circumstances and environment. So this is one of the best platform which we can actually communicate. And I do believe we made more connections in the past 8 months and 6 months with people all across the world than ever before. Because if you think about it, our opportunities to meet face to face, it was really just happening maybe twice, but at least one time each year when the National Association of Realtors annual conferences came, and we have the opportunity, and the people who had the opportunity to come to the US for those conferences And if you remember those networking sessions and sections downstairs in the expo area, that's where we really had the only chance to face each other and really network. But with all of this technology and all the changes, it's actually made it more possible. I speak more to people all across the world than ever before. And actually, I'm able to connect face to face. I know it's not the same as in person, but it is something which it's very valuable. And I think it's turned out to be a very good way to keep in touch and grow our business, which we're going to talk about in a moment. So thank you so much again for the opportunity. And I'm just going to jump on. I got a phone call around July or in August, and Bob Hartman has reached out to me, and Bob said to me, Zola, listen, I got your name from so-and-so, and it's just, you know, we would love to put together something. And we heard, you know, some things about Europe, Eastern Europe, and things like that. So why is it something you would be interested to do? And I was like, oh my God, of course. But Zola, I gotta tell you something. You know, we don't pay you anything. This is not a paid job. I was like, Bob, that's all good. I mean, I understand that we are all volunteers in one way or the other in our organization. So this is something which is giving back to our industry. And it is really my pleasure to do this. So he asked me to do a little overview about Europe. So when I was actually doing some information gathering for this presentation, I basically came up with a very nice presentation, by the way. It's going to be approximately 450 slides of PowerPoint. So I'm just totally joking. Hopefully you guys are laughing, but I'm actually did not do a 400 slides of presentation. I am so, I'm so much interacting with people usually, so it's very weird for me to have this type of a platform. But I will do my, but I will do my best to do this. So I'm going to have one slide. I actually prepped one slide, and I'm going to go through on that one slide with you guys. And again, as Olesya was mentioning earlier, just pay attention for each presenter, because each presenter is going to have a giveaway, but those giveaways are embedded into these presentations. So that is something which you just have to be really, you know, I guess, pay attention to pick up those questions, what is going to come up at the end. So when I was digging into this more in details, I, by the way, have the opportunity and the privilege to serve the National Association of Realtors global coordinator for Central and Eastern Europe. So I pretty much have a little bit of a hands-on experience with 14 countries, included pretty much from Central and Eastern Europe and all the way down to the South. And I can share some of those experiences with you. I talked to some of the leaders of those organizations. So when I was gathering these informations, I was like looking at it, since I know this is happening since August, I put together a preliminary slides. I looked at it in September, then I had to change again everything. And then I looked at it in October earlier this month, and guess what? I had to change it again. So every single week, things are changing. Well, things are changing here as well. Things are changing all around in the world, and especially in Europe. So I've been asked to talk about a little bit about Europe as a whole. I'm not going to get into details in any countries. However, because we're going to hear from our friend Antonio a little bit more specific information on Italy, which we all know that was one of the hardest hit countries back in when the whole thing started in March, right? So that's something we are looking forward to that. So instead of me going into, I'm going to give you some stats, I'm going to give you some numbers, but I really what I would like you to do is just kind of sit back, enjoy this virtual ride, and try to be open-minded about certain things. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. I think there is going to be a segment here at the end of the presentation when you have the opportunity to ask questions, but I will try to answer anything if it comes on chat box as well, but it's very hard to keep on few things at the same time to focus on. So here is my presentation. So this is the 450 slides. That's actually one little slide. But I choose this one and I put this together for you guys because I really just wanted to make sure we can cover a few things here. So I'm going to cover Central and Eastern Europe. I'm sure you guys can see my mouse as well. So pretty much what I would like you to do is just close your eyes, and we are going down from north to the east, to the south, to the west. So we're just going around a little bit. Think about coming from the beautiful fjords of Sweden and Finland and Norway and coming down and moving towards the east with the beautiful buildings in St. Petersburg in Russia, going down all the way to Ukraine, coming back up down on the south from Romania, Bulgaria, and some of those beautiful countries with natural resources and beauties, going up to Central Europe, Hungary, where, of course, everyone should know about the Hungarian goulash, right? The soup, and then moving towards a little bit to the west, going Germany, and then Italy, France, of course, with the beautiful wines and cheese, and going back to some of the islands, what we have up there with England, Great Britain, and as well as Iceland, right? So these are some of the things what you see on that map. So what is this? What is Europe? Pretty much is 51 countries totaling the whole European Europe, right? And also including 6 territories. Well, I would like you to think about just 1 second. Not all European countries are EU members. So I'm sure you heard about, European Union, and not all of them are EU members. So out of them, 27, so out of the 51 countries, it's pretty much 27 member states. So they calling them member states, such as like how we call in the US, the states, United States. It's pretty much the same applies over there. It's 27 member states. And also is sometimes is a misconception about the currency. So what about the currency? The currency is something which is not every single country is using. Not even every European Union member states are using euro. Do they accept it in officially or unofficially way? Yes, but as a primary currency, which means that's how people get paid, salaries, and that's how they get paid. That's only basically 19 countries out of the 27 European Union members. Okay, and the rest of them, they have their own currencies, so they still have their own currency. For instance, in my country, as you can hear from my accent, I'm obviously born and raised in Hungary, Budapest, and we're still using our currency. However, some of the institutions do accept euros as well, and transactions are conducted in foreign currencies as well. Well, this is something which is not on the screen, but I would like to ask a question, and you guys can put it on the chat box if you would like to. What is the official language of the European Union? Let's see the chat box. I'm going to open that up. English. Okay, gotta be English. It has to be English. Loretta, English and French. Okay, French, English, should be Hungarian, David. I know, right? That would be a mess. Esperanto, English and Spanish, Ukrainian, in English and German. Well, I'm going to tell you this. Well, first of all, this was a tricky question. I'm going to actually admit that to you guys, because officially there is actually, they recognize all 27 member states as an official language. So it should be all the countries who has 27 different languages. Now, how they conduct the business of the European Union, yes, it's also in different languages as well, but mainly in 3 languages, right? Being written, which is the German, French, and the English. But at this point, as a question, it was really just one. Everyone uses their own language. That's when you see the parliament. Everyone has the headsets on because they all getting translated from the different languages, right? So that's what's really happening there. So that was, it's not on here, but I wanted to mention that. Wow, which is brings up another topic since we are right here. And that would be is, what is the official language of the United States of America? English. There is none. English. All right, Dimitri is right on. Well, the most people, so the most spoken language is English, but officially we really don't have Spanish. We don't have either an official, I mean, we don't have an official language in the United States. So it's you know, it's English is the most widely spoken. However, officially, so these are the trick questions, right? All right. So that's something in a little nutshell. Since we're talking about languages, so you might thinking if you have clients in Europe and you would like to send them over there, and we'll talk about it actually, how to find some of the professionals there is going to be difficult if your person or your investor is a local American person or an institution, and how they're going to communicate with those people. Well, let me just show you and share you something. This slide down here, which you see languages. This is actually the countries listed in the European Union, and this is the percentage of them, how many of them do speak English, okay? So English is widely being used, and as you can see, Sweden pretty much is almost, it is 90% of the population speaks English. So you can see and have a good sense on this one, who and what the people speak over there. I think, to be honest with you, the Central and Eastern European ones, it might be this stat. I honestly would have loved to get a little more updated one, because I know from fact, some of those countries in Eastern Europe, they do speak more of them than 20%. I see some of them 25%. I really did not had any option, I mean, any difficulties when I'm traveling there and visiting some of the local businesses there and associations. Even in Romania, pretty much everyone speaks who I speak, and even in the street, you know, they know some kind of English. And business professionals, realtors, real estate agents, they are actually speak business as well. German is also popular as well, but English is pretty much, you can see it on this spread, what would be the popular countries which is speaking or not that language. All right. So it is a little bit, but definitely more there. So one of you guys are saying that. Good. All right. So having said that, I'm going to move on and give you guys some of the information here. Now, what just really happened? We got the health crisis, right? So we got this health crisis back in March, right? Some of them started earlier in Europe, right? But pretty much they started their initial tightening and also making sure the restrictions, they started their restrictions a lot sooner than, well, not a lot, but a month sooner than what we have done here in the US. And what happened there is they took some extreme measures, some countries. So they were literally flattening the curve, as you know, and notice that by the summertime, it's pretty much opened up. Now, what happened is, and why I have the great opportunity to talk about this as well, I packed up, and in the first week of July, actually, I flew back to Europe, And that's just one of the opportunities when you have two passports. So you can actually travel to that direction even when things are like this happening. So since I have my family there, meaning like my immediate family, my parents and my siblings and all the other ones are back home. So I decided to go home. So I spent pretty much the summer in Europe, in Hungary, and also realized one thing, which, you know, it was a great opportunity for me to keep my business up through Zoom. Believe it or not, I was operating, I was doing things, I was doing classes, I was doing presentations, literally from another part of the world. And some people didn't even know about it, right? So it was just very interesting. Some of my team members didn't even know, who didn't get the memo, right? So that was funny. But the bottom line is, why I'm telling you that, because once the summer started, it's pretty much opened up, right? In most of the countries in Europe. So what happened is some of them had still restrictions, and especially on the western side in Spain and in Portugal. Those are the countries, you know, they still had some certain restrictions, but Central and Eastern Europe is pretty much opened up. And then they started to use these color codes. So they put the European member states in different color codes, meaning like green, yellow, and red. So the infections rate, right? So you were able to travel between countries. And that was the opportunity when I jumped on that wagon, and I flew back and spent some time with my family over there for during this hard period of time, right? So I did had the opportunity to talk to the local associations there and the surrounding countries. And what happened is in March, April is pretty much, you know, everybody was just, what just happened? What's happened with my business? And the biggest takeaway from here, what I realized is, okay, let me clarify something. When I'm talking about agents and real estate people and real estate agents, realtors back in the Central and even in Europe, period, I'm really referring to people who are member of the National Association of Realtors. So they are, we call them the IRMs, which is the International Realtor Members. So those are the people who is actually affiliated themselves with an organization, with an association, their local association, who has actually a cooperating agreement with the National Association of Realtors. Therefore, we recognize each other, and we actually can do some business together. By the way, those of you who know me, every time when I speak, I try to give you guys at least one thing, but I'm shooting for three. I'm trying to give you three things even today, which you can learn today, take it away, and implement it into your business tomorrow or even tonight, since you guys are in California, most of you. So I'm going to share this web page with you, and that's pretty much our global site for NAR. And that is the site which will take you to the affiliated organizations where we are actually having an agreement with, so you can reach out to those people and their members, and you can do referral business with them because they are understanding the way how we do business. And as a matter of fact, some of them completing and conducting business the way how we do. So that's very interesting. And they are adhered to a code of ethics as well, so on and so forth. So it's very interesting. So when I'm talking about this type of people, I'm talking about those type of people. So I'm going to give you examples. The majority of the people are obviously, you know, they are just real estate agents in those countries. But what I'm referring to you guys now is realtors. So when this thing happened in March, April, it's a hiccup, right? It stopped because you just didn't know what to do. I mean, how am I going to do and even actually do anything, because you can't even leave your house? Some of those countries, and as a matter of fact, majority of the European Union countries, they kind of had the stay at home order. And pretty much, you know, even if they were essential business, but they could not go and show houses in some places. So how are you going to do that? So what is, I think, the biggest takeaway is pretty much what we have learned here in the United States as well, which is the technology. The technology is really put us in a position. So this is how I would say it. We as realtors, we are survivors. I hope you agree with me. We are survivors. And we all know that there is no bad and there is no good real estate market. There is a market. It's only a market, right? And then there's no good, no bad. It's a market. The way how we are approaching this market, it's up to us. So we had the opportunity to adopt, and we had to adopt in order for us to make and still continue to getting deals under contracts to use technology. So some of the things what I have seen people are adopted, some people said, you know, I sit back and I will wait this out. And that's okay. Some people did that, right? Some people were in that age group, which is the high risk people, and it's totally understandable, right? Because at that time, people did not know anything about this virus yet. It's just something which you shouldn't touch anything. You breathe in the wrong way, you're gonna, you know, all the things what you hear about it. So we had to adopt, right? So the things what's happened is using the phone, even just a smartphone, doing virtual open houses, doing showings through the homeowners by using their phones on Messenger, just simple apps like WhatsApp or Messengers, Facebook Messenger, that's what I mean, is showing the property for the potential buyer who you link together with your existing listing or someone else's listing. It was just tremendous. I'm going to give you another option from Latvia, from all places. They started to do virtual open houses. They get 3,700 views. 3,700 views. Think about when you had an open house, when you had 3,700 visitors, right? So these things are totally unheard of, especially in that part of the world. And they were able to actually adopt to these things. And I'm sure those are going to be growing their business. Think about it. So it's just the same syndrome, what I always say, you know, when life hands you a lemon, we should figure out how to make a lemonade out of that, right? And that's exactly what some of the people who are were able to adopt. That was one part which I see in realtors generally they have conducted it. But the second thing is people are stepped up their education. So education courses are really took off. Italy is one of them, to be very honest with you. They really took this to another level. In Romania, Ukraine, Russia, Moldova, those countries really took this opportunity by incorporating the technology and the time and the opportunity to learn more from our virtual platforms, what we have been offering. And by the way, a huge kudos for the National Association of Realtors to make this available, but especially the affiliated organization for NAR, which is REBI, the Real Estate Business Institute. So they're making these platforms available for them, and you know, everyone is trying to support the students from by giving discounts and certain things. So it's been a tremendous effort, and everyone who is involved, it's really it's just a good business, just a good business. Now let's talk about some of the numbers. So some of the numbers, what I was going to tell you and talk to you about is, so April, May, slowing down. In the summertime, goes back up. I have several friends who owns brokerages in that part of the world, right? And they are really started not only getting clients, so the clientele is still growing. Okay, I'm going to make a distinguishment here because I want you to think about two things. We take these things for granted. When we're talking about European real estate agency or realtors or brokerages, over here we kind of make a distinguishment: residential brokerage, commercial brokerage, right? Even in commercial, they have the different one: industrial, office, retail, and all of them, right? So we are categorizing those things. Well, in Europe, it's not like that. So it's pretty much, it's once you're in real estate, you're doing that, right? So it's very hard when you're even looking for certain stats and and researches and statistics on residential real estate, it's very hard to come by. So you do need to talk to your local associations, their local associations who has that type of data, right? Somewhat, right? Because they are all measuring things in office and retail business. So that's why, for instance, I have some of the things what I have here for you from Sweden, for instance. If you're looking at the screen, what I'm sharing you is the same thing, but these are the indicators from the office sector, how it can be affecting the residential sector. How interesting, right? Because over here, we kind of looking at the residential movement, and then that's how we are looking at also the opportunities for industrial investments and things like that. So it's a little bit different, and we're just measuring things differently. Just wanted you to know that. So when you are facing these things. So office sector in Sweden is upfront, smaller firms, almost 100% occupancy. By the way, Sweden is one of the countries which has the least amount of restrictions on the health crisis, and also the cases as well, right? So international investors are back and accounting 30% of the transactions in Sweden. Residential transactions expected to drop though, at least 20%. So Ireland, office markets, activities improved in the third quarter, and that's pretty much all the way across, right? Well, and let's see what is the fourth quarter is going to bring to us, because as we speak, some countries are getting to certain restrictions, lockdowns. Well, I shouldn't say lockdowns, because the mindset behind this in the whole European Union is they do not want to shut it down. So they have to do certain things. They have to do certain restrictions, not to spread for the spread, but they do not want to shut it down pretty much again and do lockdowns. And the reason for that, because of the economy, right? It's just, I don't have to explain this to you guys. You guys are all business owners. You know exactly what will bring, if again, restaurants are being locked down. So they're restricting them. Let's say they're closing earlier, 50% occupancy, schools are closed, maybe for the rest of the year. So certain things, what they might have to implement, but they're trying to avoid that. And as a whole, the institutions, the banks are really supporting and pouring money into the economy. And that's generally speaking in Europe. And the reason why, and the same thing here pretty much, right? That's why, because they are trying to avoid a financial crisis out of the health crisis. So no one has a crystal ball, and certainly I don't have one. But what I can tell you is things when going to be under control, and if they come up with whatever vaccine they're going to come up with, and then there's also a lot of political involvements here, and they do believe it's politically influenced as well. There's a lot of elections going on around the world, not just here in the US. So the outcome of all of those will be determining, I think next month, no, not next month. Like in December, we would have a different conversation. January, February, we are definitely having a different conversation about these things, because we should see how it's going to be shaping the future, and how important is going to be reading things already by December, January. Here locally, we will have some approved vaccines and things like that. So we'll see how it's going to happen. But what we know, and what I would like you to take away from this, is think about 2009 and 2010. And that was a legit financial crisis. It wasn't a health crisis. That was a financial crisis. People still sold and bought properties. And which brings me back to you guys. It's going to be a challenge. It's going to be uncomfortable, and it is uncomfortable already. Those of us who are international practitioners will be seeing other restrictions is applying to us, right? Because now people can't really travel, even if they wanted to come. So some of the residential investment properties, which people want to be here, it's going to be vacation homes, are going to be challenging. But then you switch it around. you're reaching out to the people who are existing owners and trying to, you know, get them listed, because we also have shortage of available properties. Now, let's get back to that. I'm going on that in a moment. Russia. So huge growth in domestic travels. Obviously, that's pretty much we can um, actually, I'm just reading the chat box to which I shouldn't. Russia is domestic travel. Well, apparently we all had domestic travel increase in every countries, right? Because pretty much we had no options. So that's something. New lockdown measures and support space demands are coming from, so tech industry, media, and finance sectors are the ones who are supporting that. But the change and the concerns, what I was trying to find uniformly what is the perception of all the countries, which is very hard, but I was able to kind of take out from all kinds of sources. They are expecting almost 50% of the countries lower returns in investments, right? They are concerned about rising construction costs, and that might be because, you know, of the shipments and things like that. We don't know what's going to happen with that. Small business owners have a little concern about a little bit. Tourism travels are also, and restaurants are also being really going back down to operating 10, 20%. So really the smaller businesses, tourism and hospitality, restaurant industries are the one who has really suffered in these past 6 months. So that's in a nutshell on that portion. Now, some of the things on key findings and future plans. So let me just go ahead and try to make this a little bit more visible for us. So key findings, future plan, like let's say the UK, Spain, and France are the top 3 locations for those considering a move abroad post-COVID-19, the health crisis, right? So some of those are the 3 countries which is pretty much looking for and considering to move abroad, right? Lifestyle changes, access to high quality healthcare is now the second most important reason for property move. So people will move to locations where they know there is actually some quality healthcare for them if they move to that location as a second homeowner or as moving out, right, from their existing locations. Prices on property values globally are expected to fall, although for most buyers, their budget remains unaffected by the crisis, right? So I'm going to stop here for a moment because this would be a very bold statement for me to say this generally. So I want you to think every real estate is what? Is local, right? It's a local business. So there is a micro and macro markets here. So even in one country, one location do better than the other city. So I just, even within towns, even like, let's say capitals, one side of the town is doing better than the other one, right? So I just really want you to don't forget that. And here is what it comes in, the importance of working with local professionals when it comes down to that. Now, second homes and travel, let me just cover that really fast. Over a quarter of the respondents of this survey are more likely to buy a second home as a result of the pandemic from Europe, get away. That's a good news for us, right? And then over half of the respondents have either traveled abroad already or plan to do so within 3 months or whatever the borders are reopening again, because as of now, is still kind of shut down, but it's still changing. Everything is changing again, right? By the day is changing. So let me just put it that way. So when it's opening, that's the most important thing to take away from that. Now, let me just finish my presentation about really just bringing this whole thing together. So this is all good, Zola. This is all good. But how am I going to make money here? Well, or how am I going to grow my business? Now, let me mention this. Since we talked about a few key points here, technology, realtors abroad, we know how to find them by looking them at that site, right, on the NER Global site. What I would personally do, I would start to reach out to those professionals, those NER recognized realtors from those countries in Europe, and start to make connections with them and setting up the stage when things are reopening. Because guess what? As much as you having problems having foreign nationals to purchase here now in the US, they are having the same issues as well. And even if you're from the US, you might have contacts in Spain, I'm just making this up, and you might be able to connect someone from Spain to purchase something in Germany. I'm just making this up again. So the connections are, I think it's very important now, and I would probably use this opportunity to connect and build that relationship with those foreign realtors all across to make sure you have built that trust with them, so when things are coming up, you can actually conduct business. And I've seen this is happening all across on the net. So there are some Zoom platforms, you guys are doing presentations on your own countries or your own local association, I mean your local places, and making these international connections. And I think that's really important now to stay with that. And don't forget, we are all in this together. So this is not something which is affected one region or even one country. This is pretty much affected all of us. So we do need to think about that. And you also have to think about it. We are all in this together and we are all professionals, and we would love is really to keep this going, keep our business going, and don't be afraid to change some of the things, what you need to change in your business model in order for you to adopt to the new norm and the new ways of conduct business. And I'm sure you guys are experienced that too, with all kinds of platforms out there, with the Zoom, WebEx, or whatever is that, Skype, you can all use all of them. Now, what I would like to actually do is, if you have any questions, please put it in the chat box. I'm going to, I think it's my time is up, and I could be totally wrong, but I'm going to stop the slide share as well. And I'm not sure, am I on time or not?
You are on time, we are doing well.
Okay, so this is my time, 12:50, right?
Yes, 12:50, but we do have a couple of questions in the chat box, so if you may answer them, that would be great.
Yes, I would be happy to. So let's go ahead and see what are those things.
I can read you the one that was put in the chat box in the very beginning so that you don't have to scroll over through all the messages. So recently, Italy voted to reduce the size of government. Can you share how, if at all, this will affect the country?
The what? The government?
They reduced the size of the government. Shrunk it.
What I suggest is that Antonio answer that call. I mean, that question. I think that would be best for Antonio since he lives in Italy.
Yes.
Perfect. Perfect. Any other things you want me to?
Yes, here's another question. What is the best source for accessing European recognized realtors by NAR?
Okay, and that is the one what I just posted on that slide. So I'm going to share this one more time so you guys can see that. And that was on the bottom of the page, and that's right here. And you're gonna go to this site and you are going to select global affiliations. And you're gonna see the drop-down menu on the countries which is being recognized, what are the associations, and so on and so forth. There you go. Thank you, Mr. Negulescu just put it in there for us on the chat box. Anyone else? If you guys don't have anything, I will stick around. So if you have any questions when the question and answer comes up, I will be able to talk to you guys. I hope you really enjoyed this little virtual journey of that Europe, and it was really a pleasure to be in front of you guys, and talk to you guys later. I'll be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation, and just looking at the chat box, we have you got really many thank yous. Let me bring up our next question of the day. So please get ready to use your chat box to answer our next question, which is one of the questions you guys already answered, which was what is the official language of the European Union? But here's another one for you. How many members use euro as their currency in the European Union zone? Please use your chat box. And while you're doing this, I just wanted to remind everyone, if you have questions, please use Q&A section, because it's easier to see the questions as opposed to just comments. So let's keep it kind of clean. And we have people answering. So Bob, are you watching the chat box?
No.
Oh, you're not watching it. So let's give it another 30 seconds and then we will close it and we'll move to the next stop, which will be, Bob, what's our next stop?
Well, are you still working with questions?
I'm gonna stop sharing right now.
All right.
Okay.
Our next speaker is Antonio Campagnoli. And as many of you already have heard, he is from Italy. His resume is very impressive. Antonio is not only a real estate professional, he is also a lawyer, author, surveyor, appraiser, and he is the president of FIAPSI in Italy. More importantly, when reading his resume, you can easily see that he is making a significant contribution to the real estate industry in Italy, Europe, and around the world. Welcome, Antonio.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I can share some slides. We'll try to share now from my PC. Can you see?
Yes.
Perfect. Today I will give you some tips about the Italian markets. One of the most important issue is to finance. Basically, when you have a client, it's fundamental to understand how is working the finance, because without that you cannot go much farther. And please note, today, maybe some years ago was different. The loan to value that the bank is usually to accept as a good compromise is 60%. And this make you a kind of sense how much equity your client needs to have to buy. As I will say at the end of the presentation, you need to understand also, I speak about the Italian market, that Italy basically is made by a lot of little village and the two main cities, Milan and Rome. And the price, except these two towns, are very affordable. And I will show you some example, but basically Italy is not an expensive place except for a few places. If I put this in connection with the fact that you need to have a 40% of equity in any case. As you know, dealing with the international market, one of the main difficulties is the finance, because you need to find a bank or an institute that is able to finance a foreign investor. It is not so easy. So the main tricks is to go to international bank, which sometimes can be in connection with your clients also in your country, or to a special entity that finance exclusively, or they are focusing on international investors. are a little bit more expensive, but usually not easy to finance going in a normal bank. So you have to keep this in mind. And why? Because basically what you do usually is to make an agreement. And as you know, how much is difficult to find an agreement. But after, you need to make an agreement subject to finance, because you will never know for sure if everything will go well with the banks. So the process of making to request a loan is not so long, but has to be followed very accurately, and can take from 1 month to 6 months. So can be longer than what you expect. You need to take in consideration this also in the acquisition side. I mean, when you do the proposal, you need to take time and be informed and get, in any case, anything ready to take time to have the finance. I think very similar as in US will be the appraisal part of the building or the property. This is something very easy. When you do the process on the bank, you have sometimes an upfront fee, which you go to pay some administrative cost of the bank and the appraisal. The mortgage is what usually is the final part of this kind of process. And basically is similar to what happened in US, is a deed where the bank kind of sees the property. If your client does not pay, they will take over the property and sell it. Usually it's quite easy, because basically in Europe, especially in Italy, everything is followed by a subject called a notary, which is a public subject, which is similar to a lawyer, but is representing the state, and is the only subject that is able to make a mortgage, and in general speaking, to touch the real estate register. In Italy, as almost in all Europe, we have this kind of register where only the notary can be allowed to make any notice or transfer the property. What I can suggest, start to take a loans, because afterwards, when you have a loans, there is a kind of provision that allowed you to move from one bank to another bank without any penalty. This has been a big reform some years ago, and this make you, especially for a foreign investor, where at the beginning they usually make much more effort to find a loan, and usually the pricing of the loan is higher. I suggest you to take it, and just after find another lender. It's much easier to refinance than finance the first at the beginning. The other part that is not easy to finance is all the capex, all the expenditure that you need to make on the building. In this sense, usually you need to find the banks that are interesting to help you to renovate the property. And usually there are some lines of this kind of loans that are not on the mortgage side, can be more expensive, but this is another part that you need to be take in consideration, especially in the Italian market, where, except for the big cities, I think the most advantage you can take when you buy property in thousand of middle-age village, where you can buy property for even from €1, but this is something exaggerate, but you can take, seriously can take 20,000-30,000 euro, and you need to renovate or to, in any case, refurbish, like refitting. So you need to spend less on the on the building sides, and to take in consideration all the part of the renovation. About the title and all the property documents, basically your brokers will help you on this, and he will advise you what is needed. But to make really a summary of what you need is to ask for the title, how they acquire the property, and all the building permit that they get during the life of the property. So basically, the building permit and the title. About the broker, as said before, to be assisted by the broker is fundamental. And please note that you need to check that the broker is licensed. In Italy, you need to be licensed. There is an exam, there is a continuing education. And on top of that, there are local associations, there are international courses. Not so easy to find a broker that is fluent in English, but it's not impossible. And what is, to me, is important that there is an expert, is an expert broker. And just to give you an idea, there are two main associations, that is FIMA, FIAIP. If together they make about 30,000 brokers licensed and associated to these two associations. So the numbers of the broker in Italy licenses maybe are around 50,000 person, and member of the main association are 80% of the same. What are the fees? That is more important also to work with the Italian brokers. Usually the Italian broker get paid from both sides, and can take from both sides up to 3%. And they are happy to share the fees. And one of the main things before to start to cooperate and to make referrals is for sure to agree what are your expectations, what are the referral fee, or what is your involvement in the transaction. What I always suggest is to don't make just a referral, but go after the deal. Keep your clients involved with you and with the local broker, because I believe that it's your client, and today, as we said before, the technology help you. You can follow your client by the virtual tour, by conference call, by emails, etc. So it's much more easier than the past to help your clients to be on the daily basis do the right step. What is one of tip of the referrals? I think is one of the most part is the fiscal part. What I suggest you, but it's not compulsory, but as far as my experience is important, make the referrals agreements in order that you are paid directly. Because what happens if you, especially if the national broker get paid in full, can be some fiscal issues about the referral fee, where the local brokers must to keep some part of this as anticipation of the tax, and you can take years to have back part of the commission. So one of the solution is to split the fees in order to be paid directly by the client in the proportion that you agree, but not to leave everything in the hand of the local broker, to just avoid the discussion at the end how to deal with the tax consequences. what is usually the referral fees can go from 50% to 50, and especially is not just the fees, is the role of the agent, how you split the work. And as I said before, I always suggest to split fairly the fees, but also to work together, because only if you work together, you have a much better results. In Italy, since 10 years, we have something similar to the US title insurance. And so especially clients that come from the US, let them know that if they want some good title or specific risk title, they can find them. And the system is quite sophisticated. So advise them that you can find similar products as in US. The price is not so expensive, so go to usually to 0.3% of the price, better on the value of you want to cover. So the insurance just want to know what is the price you want to cover. This is the most important part for you. If you wanted to know about the Italian market, go to the website where everybody of us go every day. There are 3 websites that has 95% of the market together: immobiliare.it, casa.it, and idealista.it. If you check 3 of them, you can have the full picture of the market. And I really suggest you to go after this website. Are very well done. You can select an area, you can select a type of the property you want, and basically the beginning work of you can start without the local broker. You can go to understand what are the needs of your clients, give them, say, check what are the property you want. Once you find them, I can help you to buy, to acquire, to deal with the local broker. So these are websites you can find all the property that are on the market. And as I told you, the Italian market are quite cheap. Basically, you can find a property with the lands and in the countryside, but I mean, Italy is not like US or big countries. We are a tiny country with a lot of villages. So you can barely have 20-25 miles without a village. So is and the villages usually are 1,000-1,500 years old, so very old. And also some of the buildings are very old. So so it's quite unique market. And the entire country are safe. There is no any kind of issue about safe or about like all the kind of services. School is free, the healthcare is free, even for foreign. So Italy is a quite a nice place to live. What are the some downside of Italy? The economic is not so strong. The standard of life is good, very good. I mean, the cost of living is not high. The standard of living is quite high. Except in Milan and Rome, maybe the industrial or the financial side is not so strong. But especially if you're a client that want to come from US, maybe not just to retire, but to have a second house, I think is a very nice place to be, and where you can also have some place where easily can have an internet access. So when everything will be back, I don't know when, but I think the COVID issue will, I hope, disappear one day. In any case, it will change the restriction of traveling. Can be a place where you can work from very nice tiny village where you can find everything. The price are, you can, 90% of the property you can buy price for 600 euro per square meters, 1,000. So you, speaking about the square feet, you have to multiply for 11. So about basically you have to divide for 11 because basically you have 10 square, you have, I think, but I mean, for square meter is easier to me, but square feet, for a square meter, 600 euro is not much. I mean, is I think like in US is 60 euro for 1 square feet. So it's you have to divide it for 10, but basically it's not much. And if you see, I mean, I can try to, if it's still there. Yeah, you see, it's a house. It's not crappy. It's a house, and you can see it's not a place where so it's an house. It's a house. It's 60. I mean, the price is you can buy this house for 235,000. Is with the garden, with stuff. It's not a huge price. I mean, it's a price where you can easily. I try to go back. Not easy, but okay. I will. Sorry, because I need to.
Also, the house similar to our 3,000 square feet house, right? 300 square meters.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
You can find property everywhere in Italy except Milan and Rome, very cheap. And I tell you, today after the COVID, the Milan market is much less, not so attractive as before. We're losing 2,000 people per month. It's not a lot. We have, Milan is a population of 1.5 million, so it's not huge population. But the trend is to leave the town to go in the countryside. Also because Italy is very tiny, and is you can take a train in a couple of hours. You can be, just to give you an idea, from Milan and Rome it's 4 hours by train. So if you consider US is nothing. I mean, if from New York you cannot go up New York with 4 hours by car or train. US is huge if you compare with Italy or with Europe also. So I can show you also property for, if you go other property, I can easily go to, you can go just to immobiliare.it and choose a place like Acquiterme, for example. Acquiterme. And you can find apartment very easily for cheap price. For the cost of living actually is very affordable. So the first suggestion I will give you is spend time on this kind of instrument. Take to take a look at that and use the local broker as a subject that can help you to deal with the broker, the selling broker, to understand what can be the risk. But I think your roles is very important. Don't be just the referral of something that you don't know. Help your client to enter in the feeling of the market. So spending time on this kind of website is very useful because it gives you the really how the market move. Because if you spend time for a couple of months, 3 months, you just to understand what are the properties that are under discount, where they grow the market. You just not be an expert, but they give you a lot of tools to understand how the market goes. And to help your clients, I think you can go easily on this kind of website and to be a kind of the first advisor of your client. So I finished my presentation. As usual, it's a big honor to me to be with you. And for any reasons that, I mean, you want to have other information about the Italian market, I'm very happy. I'm president of the Italian chapter of FIAPSI, and basically we gather, because it's a federation, we gather 6 associations, brokers, developers, and also 2 associations of valuers. So the main thing is to feel at home. So if you deal with the Italian market, be free to know the president of the local brokers, know the best professional in the market. So I'm very happy to speak with you, and you are welcome to visit Italy or to know about the Italian market, especially the real estate side. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Antonio. That was a very interesting presentation, and a couple of questions. Of course, this slide is awesome because that's your contact information. We had a question about how to reach out to you. And if you can please bring back the slide where you had the list of the websites where someone can search for a property. There was another question on the chat box.
This one.
Yes, this one. And while those interested are copying it or taking a picture, there are a few questions on Q&A. So one of them is, there are pretty much many similarities between how transactions are done in Italy and in the United States. What are the biggest differences?
The biggest difference is the role of the notary. Basically, in Italy, everything based on the notary. In US, the notary is not so fundamental. Instead, in US, the title insurance are fundamental. In Italy, are ancillary. So the main issue is the difference on the role of the real estate register. In Italy is a public state affairs, in US not. So this is the main big difference, but I believe as far as know, the difference are slightly much less during the years, because basically also in US, the registers are very accurate, and the role of the title insurance is important, but not fundamental. Mm-hmm. So it's not so different. They start from 2 different, totally different approach 200 years ago, but today the 2 systems very, very similar.
Thank you. Thank you. Another question, and we have literally a couple more minutes, so I'll try to read them as quickly as I can. About homeowners associations, do they exist? And if so, what is the common fee?
Can you repeat the home?
So the homeowners association is kind of like maintenance, building maintenance fees. Do you have them?
Yeah, we have them. Actually, in Italy, we call amministratori condominio, is the condominium association. Basically, except the property that are standalone as the one of the show you, most of the property are inside the condominium, and we have people that are just working as a manager of a condominium. The fees are very low. Maybe in this sense, I will suggest to always my opinion is to pay a little bit more the manager, but they have to do their work. And but in any case, are quite so sophisticated also in Italy. So about the price, you need to consider that for 4,000 or 5,000 euro per year, plus extraordinary work that the manager can have to follow, especially if he has to follow some extraordinary works. About instead the cost of the maintenance, depends. If you are in the condominium, are a little bit more expensive, higher. You need to take in consideration for 100 square meters, 3,000 euro per year, including heating and cleaning of the common parts. Instead, if you have a house with garden, you need to take in consideration the heating in the winter. In the north, the winter is quite not tough as in US, but we go around 0 and quite easily. In the south, no. In the south, they even in the winter time, they are around 10 degrees over 0, so plus.
Celsius.
So, no, yes, Celsius. I'm sorry, I don't know how in Fahrenheit. Sorry, but it's always to me is a nightmare to. But we're in the Mediterranean, and in the south we are very close to Africa, so don't worry. It's very it's very hot.
Thank you. Thank you. And probably one more question, and we will have to wrap up this segment. Is there a law requiring the buyer to pay for notary services when buying a property in Italy, or is this a customary expense, can be potential point of negotiations?
No, technically it's in negotiation, but the law say that the buyer has the right to appoint the notary, because usually, in theory, the notary is independent. So it's not important what notary you choose, which notary. But on the matter of fact, if you choose your notary of trust, maybe you have a better service than choose the notary that, for example, is the notary. Usually what happens when you buy a property that is after a construction, the notary is basically indicated by the seller, because the same notary that has followed all the division of the building. And usually it's very friendly of the seller, because when they made 20 deed per year, maybe make a lot of money with the same with the same client. So I will suggest to choose the notary and pay him, because he can be a good partner.
Thank you very much. And you know what, I apologize. The first question that came in the very beginning, and we saved it for you, and I completely forgot to ask you. So it's important for us to know, I guess. Recently, there was a law in Italy, or Italy voted to reduce the size of government. Can you share your opinion?
Last week, yeah, it's very recently, has been enacted last week. So yeah, it's not just the government, it's the parliament. Basically, we have 2 parliaments, and they reduced the number from 600 to 400, from 350 to 200. I think, to my point of view, is something that has not so much effect. I mean, as an investor side or from a foreign perspective, it's more an internal like politics, and there is one of the party that was very pushing to reduce the cost of the politics. This was the results. So I think it does not change much. In Italy, there is a stronger democracy, and to my point of view, will not change anything about this.
Thank you very much. Can we
Thank you very
also share your contact information one more time?
Absolutely, I will. This
I'm
is
still
my
getting
contact
questions
information.
about not having your contact information. I apologize. You know what, we have about 5 or 6 questions for you in addition to what you already answered, but we are running out of time. So I know it's going to be really late in Italy in another hour. So maybe if it will be okay with this, if you will be okay with this, maybe we can collect these questions and email them to you and then respond in on one case basis.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to speak with you, and see you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Can you please stop sharing your screen? Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so before I share the next slide, I would like to remind everyone we will have another question of the day for the gift card giveaway game. I would like to ask you to please only type your answers in the chat box and answer 2 questions. So 2 questions within the same chat. And let's bring up the next question. Uh-oh. I guess it's been a while. So the PowerPoint wants to do this to me. Almost there. So these are the 2 questions that we would like to ask you about Italy. How did COVID-19 change the work of brokers, and in what way did technology change our work during the health emergency? Well, I listened and paid attention, and these 2 questions were actually answered. So hopefully we have that lucky winner. I cannot see the chat box, Bob, while I'm sharing the screen. Do we have any answers there?
There is one answer.
Just don't say the name.
I'm not saying any name. It's there. Ron would have it.
Okay, well, you know what? If we only have one answer, that means that this person has 100% chance of getting the gift card, unless there is another
No,
one.
actually, there's someone with even a better answer, because there's 2 answers.
Yes, so there are 2 answers, but you have to answer both questions to get your gift card. That's the tricky part.
Exactly. So Ron has that.
Okay. Okay. So with this, I will I will move to the next slide, and we have our 5-minute break. So 5 minutes to get our cups of coffee and get ready for the next part. See you in 5 minutes. Well, we are at 1:35. And I would like to move to our next speaker. So it is my pleasure to introduce the beautiful, the smart, the energetic, someone who was born and raised in Hong Kong and educated in England, fluent in Cantonese, Mandarin, and English. She started her real estate career in 1992 after immigrating to Vancouver in 1991. Since 2007, she has her own weekly Chinese radio real estate show on AM 1320. She helps both local and international investors gain insight into different communities, both in Canada and the US. This has led her to become a sought-after Asian speaker presenting across North America, China, and Hong Kong. She also received Coldwell Banker Ambassador Award twice. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Tina Mack.
Thank you so very much. You're too kind, my dear. And it's my pleasure, it's my honor to be invited to speak on your platform and sharing what's going on in Canada during COVID time and what's going on from the macro to micro. And no, I don't have 450 slides, but I do have quite a few, but a lot of them, they're images. So just actually, give people to have more information and, like pictures to see what I'm doing. And so let me just get on my PowerPoint. Okay. Do you see that? No, I can share screen.
Not yet. Not yet.
About now?
There you go. Yes. Now.
Yay! I made it. So scary, I tell you sometimes. But anyway, so thank you very much one more time. And this is just a little bit of my background. Because of ARIA, I'm able to connect to a lot of you guys like in US because we have 41 chapters. And this gave me a lot of opportunities to understand US market a lot more. And as well as, like any countries like outside, outside the US and North America and Canada as well. Because Coldwell Banker is a global, brand. So I'm actually very honored to be able to connect globally. So go to the next one. So today I want to share with everybody is about, how COVID is pivoting the Greater Vancouver real estate market. This is what I'm going to be covering. It's like overview of the Canada economy, the pre-COVID, during and after COVID. Well, we're not really after COVID. I think that we're going to still be living in COVID in 2021, unfortunately. But we're just, adjusting it, just like the title of this forum. And then what is going on in our market, our regions and countries, what are we doing differently, how we can learn from each other. And at the end, we're going to touch on a little bit of the technology things because Vancouver is the greenest cities, or at least one of the greenest cities in the world. Some of the COVID updates. Now, like Canada's only have 38 million populations. Our population is even smaller than California. California has about 39 millions, right? If I, check my, information correctly. So we have 10 provinces. There's always a joke. Canada is like the 51st states of US, okay? So, but anyway, this is a map to show you that we have 10 provinces, and Toronto and Vancouver is basically the two cities that most people talk about. Toronto is part of Ontario, which is what you see in the red ON on the map. And Vancouver is in BC, British Columbia, is on the far left, you know, like, so that you see the COVID on the right hand side, that you see that the whole country, we have about just over, this is last night information. So it's most updated information about the COVID situations. We have 206,000, like COVID cases, but, death wise, it's 9829. As you see that the Vancouver is in the BC, we have up to date today is like 12,000 cases. And then Ontario, where Toronto is part of it, they have 66,000, and then Quebec, is 96. So you can see the size of the landmass. Vancouver, British Columbia is the smallest. You see the Quebec is the biggest, and then the Ontario as well. So landmass, we are the smallest, among these big cities. What is going on in Canada's economy? Well, we're kind of like, we're in the middle of two powerhouse, okay, US and China. So as I share with you here, so Canada, we have top trading partners, and look at this. The top number one is US. We are the biggest trading partner in the world between US and Canada, and China is number two. So if US and China cough, Canada is gonna get a very bad flu. So, everything is really related to both countries. And what is the impact on our loonies, our dollars? So as you can see, is dropped. So any foreign nationals, like Americans or Europeans or Asians, many people, they have their US currencies, US bank account and things like that. When they come to buy in Canada, it's basically, it's like 30% off. So our loonie, I mean, like we can, like we have rate later on for Australia. So our loonies and Australia dollars is pretty close. But for, against the American, like dollars with 30% off. Now, what kind of a shape of economic recovery Canada is facing? So we're not L, not V, not U, but K-shape. Now, what is, I think that some of you have, familiar or heard about this K-shape. The K-shape is that professional people are really doing well. The COVID has not changed their income. And in fact, their saving is a lot more because nobody can go anywhere. Our border closed, not that we cannot fly out, not that people cannot come into Vancouver or Canada. It's just that when you come here, you have to quarantine 14 days. So the IT people are doing extremely well. All my IT millennials clients, they're doing very well. They're very busy. They just all work from home. And what we have is the recessions for the service industry. So as we know, tourism, restaurants, hotel, cruise ship, they are in, they are tough. The business is tough on retails. So we're in the K-shaped recovery. Now, this one, you can see that the contributions of, to declines the total employment since February this year. The low paying full-time job is in the middle. So the high paid job, on the green one, and then the part-times, the red one. Now, what is going on with our unemployment rate right now? It's improving, from May, 13.7% to 10.2, and now is 9. So it's improving, but we do have a lockdown basically in March and April, so it's very different. Now, on September the 9th, US has a publications. It's also said that US economic recovery is also on, like described as K-shaped. Now, if you remember, I just mentioned earlier that we actually have a lot of people, they're saving a lot of money. Why? Because we cannot go out. Well, it's not that we cannot. As I said, when we come back, we have to quarantine for 14 days. So it's a pain, if we have to do, especially in our business, once I go to the US, if I go across the border to Seattle and just trying to go to Costco and buy something, which we cannot right now, only the essential services allowed to just, cross the border, but we could fly over there. There's no problem with with that. But once I come back, that will be a problem. So in that case that we have to quarantine. So a lot of us, we're actually saving a lot of money. We save because we're not, you know, going out and spending much. The restaurants is only allow half the capacity, and retail stores is really suffering. But, you know, it's shopping. People, they're still doing shopping, but, you know, they are not as vibrant, you know, as before, obviously. How is our economy outlook in the next couple years time? So now our border between US and Canada, we closed again until the end of November, like past your Thanksgiving. However, I have this little, you know, like insights informations. Looks like our border is going to be closed until like May, June, or July next year. So, you know, like what we see is that, you know, like once the border is opened up, we're expecting, you know, slowly recovery like Q3, Q4. So that's why you see the line is going up next year. Now, what is the major source of economic growth and housing demands in Canada? So Canada is an immigrants country, and international students coming here like crazy. If you look at the international students, this year, 2020, educations.com just ranked as #1. Now, US and UK has been on the top all the time. So this year's Canada has, you know, like, you know, took the first place. And then the international students, how many do we have? We have 642 plus international students, you know, like in Canada. And so in Metro Vancouver, as you see, we have 133. We have about 150,000 international students here in you know, Metro Vancouver. What happens to us? Because of the closed borders, it keeps our population growth slower. As you see in the chart, our population growth dropped like sharp. So on the second quarters, we only had 34,000 plus, you know, immigrants. Comparing to last year, same period, we had 94,000 plus. So it's a sharp drop. The international migrations is negative, you know, like, but then the thing is like how negative impact on the housing market, because the international, the new immigrants, people who move here from different part of the world, their sweet spot usually is about $2-3 million. So right now our market is very local, it's local market. Even though they make a good money, I'm working with millennials, they're you know, like 30 years old, they're making $130,000, $150,000, it's no problem. However, their saving amount is a lot less than, you know, the immigrants. So the benchmark price for our price point will drop. And then the number for the foreign workers and students also declined. As you can see on the left-hand side, I put down by 24,000 plus. So in general, as a whole, we have 150,000 less people in Vancouver right now. The rental for that reasons has dropped. The rental rate has dropped. Vacancy has increased. Now, let's see how it goes, because today is only the 22nd. 2 days ago, our borders start open back up to the international, for the international students to come here. 22% of the population is immigrants. So this is what our plan was. 2020, we had 341,000, you know, and then we're supposed to have over 1 million by 2022. However, we don't know how many we have in 2020. We find out, you know, later on. You know, more accurately, 2021, we'll have 250,000, and 22, go back to 350,000. So we're gonna be significantly a lot less immigrants coming to this country. Now, another things that will fuse up the markets here is politics and real estate. We have 320,000 non-residents Canadians in Hong Kong. And then we have 780,000 Canadians living in US. So during political situations, you guys have heard about what is going on, what happened in the Hong Kong last year, and then what is going on with, you know, US, it's all politics. So people start moving around. So Canadians, you know, why we have something that the US don't have, or maybe the rest of the world don't have. We have this non-residence Canadian, which means that you can be the Canadian, okay, it's like myself, but if I decide to move to US or decide to move back to Hong Kong to work, I can claim non-residence status, which means that I do not have to pay tax, income tax in Vancouver, in Canada. And I only need to pay tax where I'm gonna be, like in Hong Kong or in any part of the world. So we don't need to do the double tax. So right now, because of these political situations in Hong Kong and any part of the world, some of these Canadians might not necessarily want to come back right away, but they may want to start to put some money back in Canada. And that helps our housing market as well. So comparing to the past, the residentials, like how the housing market performs, comparing to the past recessions back in 90s and 2008, we're actually doing pretty good. Why? Because of the low mortgage rates. And then, okay, as I mentioned earlier, we had kind of like we closed, March 15, completely, like nothing's going on. So in April, our market has, as you see, is a sharp drop in our housing market. So just to give you an idea, because everybody usually talk about Vancouver and Toronto, the populations, British Columbia, the whole British Columbia is 5 million something. Ontario is 14 point something. So it's like 3 times. For Greater Vancouver, we have 2.5 million, and Greater Toronto, we have 6. So you can see that is a huge difference on the populations. If you have to look at this, look at the MOI, the month of inventory. Okay, anything that between 4 and 6, that's balanced market. Less than 4 is seller's market, and more than 6 is buyer's market. So as you can see here that, like the inventory for Vancouver in April, we had 8.5 months of inventory. Okay, and then now in September, we had 3.6 month inventory. So it has, it has changed quite a bit. And then comparing to Toronto, no, you look at the month of inventory, because the month of inventory changes the price. Low inventory, obviously the price goes up. So you see the Toronto hasn't changed much. It has always been in the seller's market. And you can also see the reason why is because we're very different how we handle COVID. Canadians in the East Coast, they're more relaxed. So their number of cases gone, as every day is up. Like Quebec, I just watched news this morning, is 1,000 per cases, like each day. So us is like a couple hundreds and we're crying here. So you can see the difference. And how we dropped. So this is the 2020 sales. The drop is that the first quarter, second quarter, and the third quarter. The blue one is the Greater Vancouver, and the red one is Toronto. As you can see that, we were up 95% almost over the Q2. Now, price-wise, no matter what, Vancouver is a lot less population, much smaller than Ontario, Toronto's, and Quebec, but our price is the highest in the country. So as I mentioned earlier, we had kind of a lockdown. So March, the sales in March, April, and May is dropped. So from June to now, pent-up demand. So housing completions versus housing start. As you can see, the yellow is the detached house, condo is the red. So the detached house is not enough, both completions and housing start, and it's more condos. And that puts the pressure on the housing, the detached house. As you can see, this one, no need to look at the 2017, but you look at the end of it. So you can see that it's really high demand because people, they're really paying premiums for the space. I'm sure that this is happening in everywhere in US, in different part of the world. The attached market, again, is not as crazy as the detached market, but is still very high up there. Whereas it comes to the condo market, the demand is less because people, they're trying to avoid elevator, they want more space, and that's what happens. However, because Vancouver's emerging tech sector is going to really accelerate our populations. We have Amazon's going to have we have the downtown, they have the downtown site. That on the right-hand side is the rendering. On the left-hand side was our post office head office, and they took over. The site is going to be over 1 million square feet. And we have more and more tech company coming to Vancouver. And Amazon's gonna hire 3,000 people in Vancouver and 500 people in Toronto. Why is it everybody? There's one thing about Vancouver is that we work and live in downtown. So we have the biggest greens in probably in the world. Like Stanley Park is like more than 10 acres, smack right in the middle of the city. So you have the seawall, they go biking, jogging, you know, like marathons and whatever, they all do that. So we all love to live in downtown and work in downtown. So as a whole, the British Columbia, what is going on in British Columbia is the Vancouver market, we have 5 boards. So most of us, we just talk about Vancouver, but we actually have 5 boards. So Vancouver board, Fraser Valley, Victoria, Vancouver Island, and Okanagan Mainline. And many Americans are familiar with Victoria, and some of them, you know, familiar with the Vancouver Island. So as you can see that the price, okay, Vancouver and Fraser Valley. Vancouver is more expensive, so the jump is a little bit less on the price increase. Fraser Valley, as you can see, they're suburb, and so more bangs for your buck. Their price has appreciated a lot more. Victoria, slight drop. Vancouver Island, slight drops, but Okanagan, where you can taste all the nice BC wine, they have gone up. I guess everybody's right now need a glass of wine. And then here is very clear. We're in the sellers markets right now across the whole British Columbia regions. Now, what do we do during the open houses? We're very strict and we have forms. So if your board do not have a form, we create a form like this that is much easier for us to do it. So we either do the open house, you know, by appointment only, or we have to make sure that we can trace, you know, in case somebody caught it, you know, during open house, we can trace it. So that's the important part. So you can create a form like this yourself. And we have another form like this, it's more formal, coronavirus statements and consent. And then we put this out there, you know, like to let people know, okay, stop, no mask, no showing, basically. So it's a mask on, sanitize, you know, safe social distancing. We're very, very cautious here. And also the reason why, you know, like because of that, in fact, my observation is that the Vancouver realtors are more worried than the buyers and sellers. So as you can see, it's pros and cons, everything. Okay, it's a team of 2. We do an open house in a condo. Why? Is because in the condo situations, we have floor blocks. We use the fob and we only go to our own floor. And usually it takes only 45 seconds. Once you buzz in, you know, and go to the elevator, it's like 45 seconds you have to go to the elevator. But right now, the elevator, they restricted to 2 people, maybe 4 people or maximum, you know, or the same bubbles. So your 45 seconds definitely is not gonna, you know, make it. So when we do open houses, we need to have a team of 2, one in the lobby to let people go up to the elevator and another one that's in, you know, in the units. And we're also very cautious about tenants. If we sell anything that with tenants in there, so tenants' rights, they have to be very comfortable with the situations and how we have to handle it, make sure that, you know, we don't get spread any germs and things like that. Now, lastly, I want to share with you is the Vancouver green technology. Now, I'm not, obviously, we're not, you know, in that space, but I would like to share with you a video very soon, is that, you know, like the LEED, you know, we have 300 LEED certified projects, and we've been the 3rd greenest cities in the world and #1 in North America. We cycle, people bikes everywhere here. We have bike lanes. Our city spends so much money, millions of dollars on the bike lanes. So our convention center is, you know, is the only one in the world, you know, like that has, you know, like the top level LEED platinum certifications for environmental sustainability. So I would like to share this videos with you. And let me just go sharing, new share. Here you go. Here. So can you see the video? Can somebody tell me that you can see the video?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
This is Thomas Miller from the Canada Green Building Council. Our sister organization, the US Green Building Council, has done quite a bit of work over the last few months to support the industry during COVID-19. A number of adjustments and changes were made to the LEED rating system. The first one of these changes relates to what they call safety first LEED pilot credits that deal with cleaning and disinfecting, ventilation, building reoccupancy, and finally recommissioning the water system. The second set of changes deals with the adaptive review process. During COVID-19, some activities like commissioning, surveys, audits will take longer to complete, and there will be extensions granted. And finally is something called REentry, which is about the ARC performance platform. REentry provides some tools to building owners to collect data on occupant experiences, to track indoor air quality, and also to benchmark infection control policies and procedures. Another important part that's come into focus during COVID-19 is the whole aspect of health, individual health, but to a certain extent also public health. Individual health in that they found that people that are in good state of health actually have less severe symptoms when getting COVID-19 and recover a lot faster. So that really emphasizes the role to maintaining good individual and good public health. And LEED and CHGVC has supported it for many, many years. Health has been in LEED for the last 15 to 20 years. And there are just kind of a number of strategies to support that. And most of you are familiar with those, ranging from daylighting, bring daylight into buildings, which have been very good for occupants, to views to the outdoors, biophilia, having plants indoors, to issues like acoustics and noise, to finally better indoor air quality through ventilation and material selection, select materials that are healthy and natural for better indoor air quality. Now, we now increasingly have empirical evidence from schools like Harvard University School of Public Health to more recently, the University of Illinois, and our National Research Council published quite a bit of research on the benefits of green buildings on occupants. But it also extends beyond the building envelope, that actually green buildings have an extended benefit on the community. And a very good example would be green roofs. When you think about during COVID-19, where people have been confined to their condos for weeks on end, going outdoors into a park is a welcome respite, but in urban areas, parks are often not available. So green roofs would provide a welcome respite from being confined to an indoor space during COVID-19. The same as that LEED asked for that buildings are connected to things like bike lanes. So that people can access buildings in different ways. Again, during COVID-19 and post-COVID-19, I think these are welcome strategy not just to improve fitness, but also provide access for those they don't want to go onto transit because of fear of infection. So LEED buildings provide a lot of benefits beyond the environmental to improve individual health and public health, and have provided an opportunity for those users to actually build those strategies into new and existing LEED buildings today.
Great. So I just want to make sure I stop it. Did I stop it? Okay, here you go. Great. So yes, so let me go back to mine and then go there. So Thomas is the president and CEO of the Canada Green Building Council. His presentations basically, it's like what I spoke to my other colleagues, what they talk about the developers, they already start doing a lot of things, but most important thing is the outdoor space. So make sure that they have more, a lot of the urban condos in downtown, we don't have balconies. But right now they really have to go back to like balconies and more green space. And like usually you can do, I've seen buildings, they use their phone to open the door. So it's more or less touching that kinds of information. So the reality is that, what is going on in the next couple of years, all these buildings, they already pre-approved, and then ready to rock the blueprint. So nothing is gonna be changed. And then the suppliers and the information, supply innovations and the politics, whether the politicians and the policy allow this to move forward, And so for this, you're not really having a real post-COVID buildings until really 4 years later. And as Thomas mentioned, everybody's right now is not about the green technology. Green is like, sometimes we talk about saving, saving energy and all that. But actually right now, people is all about health and wellness. So air quality, redesign the amenities, more green space, like I said, just to improve what they already, the technology they existing have. And the buyers, the main thing is that sometimes the buyers, they want to have everything, but we don't want to pay for it. So the developer has to somehow strategize it and how they can absorb these costs. And then, so that the consumers and also find it like, more safe to live in condo. Because after all, in condo, in Vancouver, housing price is detached house is so expensive. That's why condo is still gonna be the way to go. And so how British Columbia behaves differently from the rest of the country, or even in the US, is that people here say health over economy. Okay, I know that everybody say that don't shut down economy. Nobody wants to shut down the economy. But then in Vancouver, somehow everybody is like I mentioned earlier, the Vancouver realtors, we're more scared. Like a lot of us are a lot more cautious than the buyers and the seller. So mainly is that we're very self-disciplined. Everything's, like when at the beginning is always the Chinese wearing the mask. So when I wear the mask at the beginning, people they think that, wow, what are you doing? We don't need the mask. But right now, if I go to somewhere else and I don't wear mask, and then people look at me, it's like, how come you're not wearing mask? So, and then Quebec is the first province that they impose, because they have 1,000 cases every day. So they impose stiff penalties, 6,000 Canadian dollars if you don't wear a mask in the indoor public places. So it's a lot of strict rules right now. So, one thing that I want to share with everybody is like inbound and outbound referrals. Like I mentioned that, we have, 780,000 Canadian living in Vancouver, in US. It's not just that, plus the second home owners, like the snowbird, okay, they buy there. So that's why the NAR report says that Canada is 9.5 billion. So, okay, we just second, China and Canada is always like swap places. And obviously 42% of the Canadians buy in Florida because there's snowbird, East Coast. And then California, has, a good percentage there, 19%, and then Arizona. So this represents about 18,000 plus transactions every year. I mean, like at least the past year. So, like obviously California is not going to have something like 517,000, but we get the point. So inbound and, outbound referrals is the key, what we can do from now, like more instead of just thinking of one way. Thank you very much. And that's all from me. And if you would like to get a hold of me, that's my email, and that's my WhatsApp. And here we go. Thank you so much. I hope I get everything in time.
Yes. Wonderful presentation. I just wanted to read one of the comments in the chat box for you.
Sure.
Tina, after hearing and watching your presentation with all your enthusiasm, if I ever decide to move from a beautiful Portugal, Vancouver is definitely on my top list. Thank you. Best regards. That's from Portugal.
Yes.
From Antonio.
Thank you.
We have a couple of questions. What is the current interest rate in Canada?
Oh, 5 years. Okay, so our mortgage is very different from US. US has the 30 years amortization for the whole durations, right? So if you get a 3%, you pay 3% throughout the 30 years, right? But now I believe that US also have those, arm length, like 5 years terms and things like that. HSBC, they have these models. And Vancouver or Canada, we have always been having this. So for the 5 years, variable rates, 5 years is 1.75%. I literally just refinanced my one of my rental properties, 1.75%.
Wow.
Yeah. And foreigners come to buy the mortgage. The interest rate is sometimes some banks they will do a little bit slightly higher, and then some bank is not. And then I have to say that yes, Vancouver we have this foreign national tax, which is a pain because too many foreigners they just love our cities. They come here and they just complains. Okay, too many foreigners coming here, so the party that's in power right now in British Columbia, they slap in this foreign national tax. However, like Vancouver is big. It's not just Vancouver. So there are places in British Columbia that you do not need to pay this foreign national tax.
That's good to know, because I see that many people are already packing their luggages to go to Canada.
Well, I will share with you, message me, and I'll share with you where you should go without the tax and where you say that, okay, I don't care, I pay because of the 30% currency differences. You're still ahead of the game.
Well, that's good to know. Thank
Yes.
you. And another question, let me see. What are the fees to close a transaction in Canada and property tax per year?
Okay, so the fees is, okay, when you buy, well, North America is like that. The buyers, buyers don't pay commission, right? But one thing is that just to share with you is that Vancouver has the lowest commissions across a lot of places, not just in North America. We basically, it's like 3% across the board. And so 1.5, 1.5 of each size, just to make it simple. The mortgage, the closing rates, let's say with the lawyers, because we use attorney to do the closing, we don't do escrow. And usually it's about, like $1,200 Canadians with the mortgage. So let's say around $800 US, to do that closing. But, like, that's all you need, okay? And then the banks will ask for the bank appraiser to go there to appraise the property before they approve, the mortgage, everything. So that is about $300 Canadian again. The property tax, okay, the property tax, we are very different from US. I know US sometimes, like San Francisco, I know that, okay, after you buy it, and then every year you go up, if you pay for $1 million, and then every year it goes up maybe like 1.8%, something like that every year, right? So here is very different. So the city of Vancouver has less money. Why? Because, 2010 we had Olympics, and then 2008 we know what happened in 2008. The global economic crisis, and so Lehman Brothers, they pull out the financing. So our city, the city of Vancouver, has to bail the whole Olympic Village, which is a place where all the athletes stays there. So we had to build that fast so that we can meet the 2010 Olympic in Vancouver. So the city of Vancouver property tax is higher than other cities. Okay, other cities has surplus, so it's less property tax, but the city of Vancouver will have more property tax. So it's not like in US, that simple. So, like, depending on where you go, some city less, some city more.
Well, one similarity, when it comes to taxes, it's never simple.
Yes, I know. But then the thing is that we have this, what we call, I used to think that, like US tax is very complicated. And I think that right now, because so many people's coming to Vancouver, our tax is getting just as complicated. But you know what? Leave that with the professional, let them handle it. Just come and enjoy the water and the mountains and the oceans.
Exactly. Great advice. Can I ask you to stop sharing your screen, because we are right at the time to continue our game. So just as a reminder, thank you, Tina. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Just as a reminder, please answer both questions, and please put your answers in the chat box to be considered for this challenge. So we have two questions here. What shape of economic recovery is Canada facing, and what are the two fundamental reasons for housing demand in Canada? Let's see. Okay, we get answers coming in. That's great. We'll give it a few more seconds because we are getting ready to make our next stop on our world tour, right, Bob?
Yes, and I believe Ron has that covered with the responses already from the chat box.
Awesome. Then I will stop sharing my screen and we are back to you, Bob.
All right. You're still on the screen. Alessia, you're still there.
You're still seeing my screen?
Yep.
I thought I stopped sharing. I don't have it. Okay, let me see.
All right. Well, we'll do something different. I will be on the side of the screen and I'll be introducing, and Alessia will be watching. We have a real surprise for everyone. Not only do we get one person from Australia, we are getting 3 people from Australia to discuss with us what's been going on there in real estate on the continent. So our first person that I will introduce all 3 of them at the same time, but the first gentleman that I've been working with, thanks to Gary Thomas, is Ray Ellis. Ray Ellis is the CEO of First National Real Estate Network. First National is the 3rd largest real estate network in Australia, New Zealand, and the South Pacific. He has reinvented the marketing real estate in today's environment with an emphasis on the customer of tomorrow. Ray has provided valuable leadership for the network and the industry during the COVID pandemic. Ray lives and works in Melbourne. David Lovell has been a real estate professional for over 30 years. He is the current chairman of the First National Network. His hometown, I hope I pronounce it, is Yamba, is one of Australia's most popular rural and lifestyle locations. It is very similar to Santa Barbara here in California. David has extensive experience marketing premium locations, development sites, and rural properties. Our next speaker from Australia is Frank Tierney. He has been involved in commercial real estate for over 50 years. He is one of Australia's leading experts regarding development, leasing, sales, and management of commercial properties. Frank is a member of the First National Network team, but also works with the largest group of independent agents in Australia. He is going to give to us some insights into the COVID impact on commercial investment properties in Australia. So I thank you for listening to that introduction, and welcome to all of you. I hope that they get the screen repaired here. Thank you. Come on in, Ray.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me and see me?
We do. You're there.
Well, thank you. And it's a pleasure to join you. And thank you for that kind introduction. You read the notes perfectly, Bob. So that was very well done. But
enlarged them. I changed them.
First off, I thank you all the other colleagues from around the world that presented this morning. It's been very interesting, particularly as Tina's enthusiasm for Vancouver. It's only Friday morning here, nice and early, so it's woken me up with a smile on the face. Thank you, Tina. And first off, we'd like to send a big hello to all those people, not only in Orange County, but California and throughout America that we've got to know over the journey. And I thank Gary Thomas for his friendship, Steve Goddard for his friendship. Bob, I haven't had a chance to meet personally yet, but I'm looking forward to that very quickly. In fact, we were supposed to leave for America today to come over for the NAR convention in New Orleans. So it's certainly different days. So it's a pleasure to join you by the means of technology. And also our hearts go out to all those many, many, many millions of Americans that have been affected by their jobs or their health of COVID. It's a similar situation down here in Australia, the same percentages, and everybody is just learning to cope with the best they can. I'm pleased to announce that Australia's coping with it very well, particularly in economic conditions and health conditions now. We're coming out of our winter, we're going into our summer, but it's a time for all of us to band together and practice safe inspections, as Tina did in Vancouver. We're doing the same things here in Australia. But the First National Network is very closely associated with NAR, and we look forward to that continuing, and we're very privileged to be invited to join here this morning. As Bob said, I'm going to go through the details, which are our general economy and where we're at in our market. David Lovell, a great practitioner in a rural and lifestyle area and a bubbling holiday spot. And Frank Tierney, even though Bob kindly recognised one of Australia's great commercial agents, he would be one of the world's great commercial agents. I was with Frank yesterday, and the information he's got will be of great benefit to all those people participating and watching this later on after the recording. Australia, as you know, is a long way from America. We are the down under country. We're right at the bottom of the world. And in COVID times, we're quite happy to be in that situation. We're like everybody, we can't leave our country. In Melbourne, here in my own hometown, we can't leave our house at the moment. We're at the end of our 120 days of lockdown for the third time, and we're hoping to be released from our home this week. So they've been challenging times, but I'm so proud and pleased of what my team's been able to achieve working from home, and more importantly, the way the agents have conducted business. It'd be unkind to say the real estate market hasn't been affected here in Australia, but it'd also be equally as true to say that the way we've done business and transaction has been sensational. The real estate market in Australia is unique in the world. In America, you have the great American dream. In Australia, we have the great Australian dream. And that great Australian dream is ownership of property. We have the highest ownership rates in the world. And every young person aspires to own a property to live in or a property to invest. And that is what makes the opportunity to invest in Australia very unique, because demand is always strong. I've lived and worked in America back in the 2000s. I've been the property boom, the property bust, the GFC. The GFC certainly affected Australia here, but the Australian housing market and the property investment market is never disadvantaged by economic conditions. Has never happened and will never happen. For example, at the start of the COVID pandemic here, back at the end of our summer in February and March, there was predictions that property market would fall by 30 to 35%. Those predictions come around every 5 or 6 years in Australia. They have never, ever occurred. In our two major cities of Melbourne and Sydney, prices have come off between 6 and 8%, and already they're starting to climb back. It didn't occur in other capital cities. In fact, outside of Sydney and Melbourne, in the areas of Perth and Brisbane, which is Queensland and Western Australia, the forecasts are for property prices to increase there, get ready for it, by 15 or 20% over the next 2 years. And in fact, the turnaround in Sydney and Melbourne has already occurred. We had an auction in a good suburb in Sydney last weekend, which was very similar to, say, Manhattan Beach in Los Angeles. The reserve was 2.5 million. The sales price was 2.7 million. So 200,000 above the reserve. The market is bouncing back very strong. So the reason I labour on those points is, if you're looking to invest in Australia, these unique conditions where people want to own the Australian dream, the strength of our market, our interest rates are the same as around the world, they're very low. It was a good question to Tina before. A mortgage rate in Australia can be between 1.5 and 2.5%. They've been at those levels for 4 or 5 years now, and they'll be at those levels for the next 5 to 6 years around the world because of economic conditions. That's another discussion for another time. So those factors make Australia a very popular place to invest. And similar to Tina in Vancouver, the Chinese market, the Asian market, because we're on the doorstep of Asia. They're our major trading partners, our major economic partners, and our major migration partners now. There's been a slight hookup with the border closures. Close to 52,000 students haven't returned to Sydney or Melbourne since our borders were closed. That's affected rentals in the inner city market. They've dropped by about 10 or 15%. That's a supply and demand issue. Once the borders are open, they'll return back. So if you're looking for a safe place to invest, and Australia, very similar to Canada, very similar to the United States, our security of tenure is the strength of our market. Security of tenure, where the government cannot take your property away from you, only exists in about 23, 24 countries in the world. And Australia is one of those. And in our region, it's Australia, Japan, and Singapore, and that's it. That's what makes Australia a very popular place to invest. So those conditions, the strength of our market, is indicative of what you'll find if you choose to invest in Australia. And similar to the Canadian dollar, we're about 30% less than the US dollar. It fluctuates upon demand, but traditionally we've always sat between 70 and 80% of the US dollar. So again, you're getting greater value for your money by investing here, and you're getting security of return. And also, this is for Australian tax holders, not for overseas investors. We have a few minor taxation things for people who wish to invest in Australia, but in the consequences of returns, they don't amount to a lot. In Australia here, again, what props up the market, and props quite not the right word, what supports the market is we have a very generous taxation regime. So the components of a cost of a mortgage in excess of the rental return for that mortgage are tax deductible here in Australia. We call that negative gearing. It's been a program that's been in for 30, 40, 50 years now. It ceased for 1 year in the 80s. It caused a dramatic impact in the market. It was quickly reintroduced some 11 months later. And there's a debate every now and then about would it be changing again? That's not going to occur in the foreseeable future. Again, because the average Australian, I'm talking about the mums and dad market, the Aussie and Harriets, they make their money out of property by buying a simple dwelling in one of our suburbs or regional towns around Australia. They monitor it, they watch it, and it's a big part of their income and their wealth creation. So all of those things, that taxation regime, the facilities we have, the Australian dream, low interest rates, security of tenure, a strong Western democracy, a strong country that has a great relationship with the United States, a strong country that has a great relationship with Canada, except maybe in the Commonwealth Games, which come around every 4 years. 10 will know what I'm talking about there. Makes us the ideal place to invest. In relation to our network, as I said earlier, we have a great relationship with NAR. We love that relationship. We're very proud and privileged to be able to contribute today. We learn a lot from our attendance at the conventions and sessions. We learn a lot from our relationships. We get great benefit from the friendships from it. And I know every year we take our top performers by salespeople and officers to the convention, and they came back not only enthralled with what the United States has to offer, but the learning capabilities what NAR provide. And I'd like to thank Cindy Forth and whole team there up in Chicago to assist us every year, Betsy and Alexandro and lots of people. So the relationship's strong, the market's strong down here, the friendship's strong, our economy is strong. We're a great economy. Is what in simple terms, we grow great food, the world eats it. We dig up great minerals and the world demands it. So those two components always make us a solid economy. Our unemployment rate has been hovering about 7% since the start of the COVID pandemic. Traditionally, it sits about 4%. 4% is virtually zero in this country, because I'm sure it's the same in America and Canada and other countries. There's always a percentage of the population who have no interest in working, but I won't get into that debate. So from our point of view, 4% is virtually zero. So 6% will be considered high. It peaked about 7% 2 months ago. There was expectations that would go to 10%. That's not going to occur because we have a strong government that's supporting our economy. Debt's not really the issue for us. It's not the issue for any economies around the world, because interest rates so low, increases of debt in any economy, including Australia, the repayments at the moment are less than what they were pre-COVID pandemic because of interest rates. So government debt is not an issue. It's a bit higher than what we want, but a strong economy will get rid of that. So hopefully I've given you a snapshot of what the general market conditions are, what the general economic conditions are, the strength of our economy, the strength of our network. We have over 350 offices around Australia, New Zealand, the South Pacific. If you're looking for some great properties to buy, Noumea, French Caledonia, wonderful place to be, New Caledonia there at the moment, and Fiji and Vanuatu. That dream lifestyle of living on a beautiful house under the palm trees of a Pacific island, it's always there. It's one of my favorite places for my team to visit for an office visit. I don't know why, but they're pretty keen to go to there all the time. So, and the same throughout Australia. We're a big country. We're as big as United States of America. We're as big as Canada, but a population of only 25 million. So there's lots of open space. There's lots of land to buy. There's lots of lifestyle places to buy, and there's lots of great opportunities. So I'd like to now hand it over to David Lovell, who's our chairman/president up there in Yamba, as Bob said, a beautiful seaside village. Village is a bit unkind because it's a major town as well. They have lifestyle, they have rural. David will describe it as the ideal place to live, but it's indicative of what Australians do, because we have strong growth in regional Australia by prices at the moment. That's going to continue because Australians and people from overseas search out the lifestyle. David is just 100 miles south of Byron Bay, which is well known around the world. All the movie stars come there to live. Nicole Kidman has a house there. The Hemsworth boys have houses there. They all escape there. So David is on the edge of celebrity, but he's a good, solid Australian citizen and a great friend. So I'll hand over to David Lovell now.
Thank you. Thank you, Ray. Can everyone hear me okay? All good?
Yes.
All good. Thank you, Ray. That's very kind introduction to you. And yes, I do. I do pride myself for living in God's country here on what we call the far north coast of New South Wales. For those who aren't quite used to the Australian eastern seaboard, it's about halfway between the top and the bottom. If you look at the very top of Australia to the very bottom of Australia, on the eastern seaboard, Yamba's about halfway up in a semi-tropical climate. Ray gave a very good overview there of the general economy and touching on the property market in general. I'll be a little bit more specific. Having been in the industry for about 30 years, mostly in residential, of course, and as the kind introduction was around rural as well and lifestyle, the predictions pre-COVID, call it January, February this year, couldn't be that far from the truth. The thought process of properties falling in massive amounts of money never happened. The residential market, particularly in Australia, is as buoyant as I have ever seen it. Now, I can't relate that to any other parts of America and Canada and Europe, but from a point of view of buoyancy here in Australia, probably 2003 and 4, at the height of the previous boom, is the only time that I've seen it as strong as it is now. And it's in quite parallel to what you would think, obviously, being hopefully at the back end of this pandemic. But most real estate windows, real estate office windows in Australia, I'm not going to be too specific saying on the North Coast or on the Eastern Seaboard, but I could probably say safely, when you do a ring around the whole of Australia, most real estate windows are full of sold signs. There is a massive, absolute massive lack of available stock. Buyers are paying over the odds for properties, like Ray said earlier. If it's an auction property, it's selling well above reserve. If it's a property that we're selling what we call in Australia by private treaty, in other words, just put an asking price on it, people are paying the full price, and if not, paying more. I'll give you an example here in our little town here on the North Coast. We had an example the other day. It was a $750,000 Australian property, 750,000. We had a gentleman walk in the door and said, look, that's fine. I've missed out on so many others. I will put another $30,000 on the table to entice the seller to change their mind. The seller already thought they were getting well in excess of what the property was worth, about 50 grand more than they thought it was worth, because they had looked at the market for 12 months. That's how much it had gone up. And they said, no, the demand for property is unbelievably strong. So what happens then, of course, is it pushes people into the rental market. So again, we're seeing rental prices go through the roof as well. If it's been a rental price on a property, you can probably plus 10% or even plus 15% from 6 months ago. And from a point of view of a sale property price, that would be about the same, plus 10 to 15% in the last 6 months. Now that's completely contravening all the doomsdayers saying we're going to see a 20, 30, 40% drop at the beginning of COVID. It is a complete parallel. Now what we're also seeing, obviously with borders closed, obviously with the national border closed, we're seeing a lot of people, no doubt, like in your regions and your areas, they've got pent up money. They're not spending it on the $50,000 and $60,000 and $70,000 overseas holiday. They're doing massive property renovations. They're investing in their own wealth because they're not spending it in other areas. The market is bubbling along at an amazing rate. And as Ray alluded to, and I cannot emphasise it enough, that's the way it's going to be for the next couple of years in Australia. It is a market that I've only seen once before, and as I say, in 2003 and 4, we're very, very blessed to be so far away from the bad things that are happening in the rest of the world, and the economy is proving that to be so. Now, Frank's going to touch very shortly on commercial and industrial, but I'll give a bit of a segue to that. A lot of the people in Australia who have been investing in residential real estate, in other words, like Ray alluded to, the everyday mums and dads who are building their wealth outside of their own home ownership and outside of income from their jobs, are just, they're buying 1 or 2 or 3 homes over the period, negatively gearing them, getting the tax effectiveness that comes with that to help pay them off, supporting the government schemes that are around to supply government housing, which are never enough. So it relies on the mums and dads of the world in Australia, my apologies, to supply housing to the less fortunate. So we do get a little bit of a kick along to do that. If it was up to the government to do that, there'd be people sleeping on the streets. So that's why when Ray alluded to that before in his words, that they got rid of negative gearing for 1 year many years back, it was soon turned around because the government could never obviously supply enough housing to support the less fortunate people. So it's up to the mums and dads to do that in Australia. But what I was saying, back to my point, is that because the economy is travelling along so beautifully at the moment, we're actually now seeing the general mums and dads of the world who are generally safe in buying investment property, safe in buying their own homes, safe in securing long-term mortgages at next to zero interest rates, safe in the fact that they've got jobs at the moment. Job rates are very, very low in Australia. Anybody employing people at the moment have a plethora of people because there's plenty of people out there looking for great long-term jobs, and they're very, very humble in taking those positions. It's a great time to be an employee in Australia. But what's happening is we're seeing people move away ever so slightly from residential real estate as investments due to all the regulations around tenancy rules. And I won't get into the sides of politics, but sometimes it's quite biased towards tenancy, where the landlord feels like they're always on the back foot, trying to clamber and stay in front of the rules that are sort of put in place for tenants. And so we're seeing people move away from that now into commercial and industrial style investments, whether it's for their own businesses through their self-managed superannuation funds and or investments, where the opportunity to own an industrial or commercial investment is very more biased towards the owner or the landlord, where you have a lot more control over your investment. You're not dictated and determined to what you can and can't do by what we call in Australia the Residential Tenancies Act. It's a lot more to the tune of, if you don't pay your rent, I will lock your doors and kick you out. It's not quite at gunpoint to that, but it's a lot nicer for people who've got a bit of extra money and they're not prepared to tolerate that anymore. So in general terms, the property market in Australia is unbelievably strong. We've seen good increases in prices, as I say, 10 or 15% so far this calendar year, 2020. Rents have gone up the same, 10 or 15%. We're seeing between 5 and 5.5% return. In other words, and that's gross return on your investment. So that's wonderful. So you're getting 5 to 5.5% return week to week by way of rent payments. You're getting 10 to 15% capital growth. You're getting tax effectiveness through gearing. And we've got a couple of years of low interest rates. So in general speak, fantastic time to be in real estate in Australia. And I hope that hasn't cut your grass, Frank, in respect to commercial and industrial. Look forward to any questions that you may have.
Well, great information. I think we all are speechless right now at the moment. We are just still listening. So Bob?
We're looking for Frank.
Frank is here.
All right.
Commercial, let me paint a picture for you. Over probably the last 30 fiscal quarters within the Australian economy, there was growth. One of the best records in the world. The commercial market in Australia has been strong and grew stronger. There were many reasons why. The economy was good, government was steady, the ability to borrow money, financial institutions saw commercial as a low risk. There was plenty of money around, steady valuations and appraisals. Returns on commercial property, probably 10 years ago, 7 or 8%. In the years prior to COVID, that dropped down to about 3, 4, 5%. Agencies were doing well. Agencies actually started to go into the realm of being order takers rather than negotiators. Those that had good property management businesses did very, very well. And their commissions were dropping, but they had quite a lot of transactions. Turnover was good, profits were good. Landlords at that time, or property owners, were the king and the queen of the market. And the governments around Australia were getting quite a lot of money out of real estate by way of transfer on stamp duties. COVID came along. Horror, shock, dismal, what's happening, panic, confusion. And what happened then, we got into lockdowns within Australia, and that caused certain problems. Industries, as you know from previous speakers, all around the world, some industries have been doing well, the professional area, and some industries have been doing very, very poorly. In Australia, you have a federal government and you have state governments. The messages started to be confusing. The federal government was saying one thing, yet in relation to commercial property and leases and behaviour of commercial property, they were by state and territory jurisdictions. The states and the territories were slow to react. They then brought in legislation which meant you couldn't kick tenants out of retail or industrial premises. You couldn't kick them out of commercial premises. You had to have new rules about rental relief and more rules and more rules. Then there was difficulty with interpretation. So what actually happened, the government in a certain extent said they were in control, but the state governments were they were blundering and they were not sure what they were actually doing. However, that then meant that certain things within industry, the realtors, the agencies, and the real estate businesses then started to say, well, how do we actually handle this? And there are a lot of agencies that have to learn things very, very quickly. How to handle landlords, how to handle tenants, what to do with property owners. Now, yet while that was going on, there were still transactions that were happening. And transactions for really good A-class commercial and industrial properties were still going on because the returns were good. But what's happening in some of the other areas, the vacancy rate is rising. Yesterday, I live in Melbourne. Yesterday, I walked through the city, and the city is nearly desolate. But you go out to the suburbs, and the shopping centres are, those that are open are thriving. But the government closed down retail. And in the city centre of Melbourne, about the only thing that's open is some takeaway food. So what you've actually got, you've got different pace happening. You've got your metropolitan area, you've got your regional areas, your sub-regional, and then you've got your country areas. But what's actually happening, those businesses that have had property management have been able to go ahead and survive. But they've had to change. There's been very, very quick education. First National Real Estate Group, through Ray and David, were able to provide cutting edge education, knowledge, and where to get information from. Because even the government, their interpretation of their laws started to change after a little while. So things are starting to settle down where people know where they are, but there are actually moratoriums on rental. There is rental relief for certain areas. Certain tenancies are saying, oh, we don't have to pay rent. So what's actually happened, we've had poor and bad corporate behaviour from people that didn't need to do that. And that's starting to be seen. You've got other companies that are actually starting to recapitalise, and there's been different things that have been happening. So you might think, wow, you know, that's really, really bad. But what I want to then do is say, well, that's during COVID, and we're going to have COVID for a while, and we're going to fight through it, and we are going to have vacancies. And from a real estate industry point of view, it's a matter of actually how do we handle that commercial and industrial, because there is a lot of money within Australia seeking investment, and the stock market is fluctuating. People are unsure, it's unstable. People will drive back to what they know. They know real estate, and they'll be wanting to get into commercial and industrial property. But what it's really going to mean is they're going to be very choosy on the class of property, what they're going to get. So let me talk a little bit about post-COVID, and I'm going to tell you how that's going to work. And I'm going to suggest to you as realtors and agents how you bring your A-grade game to the table. Now, the new emphasis is going to be words like occupancy costs, occupancy behaviour. So take that in, and there will be sunshine coming through within the commercial property markets. Transactions will move again, and then they'll start to probably slowly increase. So you're going to have different patterns, and you've got to learn to read what those patterns are. And to read those patterns, I'm going to suggest that you get into demography. So it sounds like a big word, but what it really means is that's what's happening in your market, your local market. Real estate is local. It's your local market, learning what's happening, what industries are working, what industries aren't working, who needs more space, who needs less space. And you can do that at a local level. So that's why I'm saying just get into that area of demography. Okay, and you're certainly going to go and find now that as you go out and start to define the different classes of property, there will be, and this applies in all of the Western world, there's going to be A class, B class, C class, D class. And not everybody is going to actually handle into the A class. So there's going to be a transition of how does B move to A or C move to B. You'll work that out. I won't necessarily need to tell you about that. What you're going to find, the areas where, for example, supermarkets, medical, home building, that type of thing, people are going to be looking for that because those industries have actually boomed. And if you look at the returns on some companies, and it's easy to look up companies and their returns, some of their trading figures are absolutely outstandingly high. They've done very, very well, and they will continue to do well, and they'll become more aggressive in the market. So they'll get more market share. So what you actually need to do is, from an agency point of view, look at where your market share is going to be. The market will punish poor properties and poor landlords. They will be punished, I mentioned that. What you're going to find, there's going to be difference in how financial institutions look at appraisals or valuations. Appraisers or valuers will have more pressure on them from their professional indemnity insurance. So we'll be going through this time where there'll be fluctuating valuations. Financial institutions may be a little bit unsure. And in the process, that some of the paperwork side of things will become burdensome. So what you really need them to be doing, what is the difference? The realtors need to look at what is the DNA of their commercial property or their industrial property. And unlike humans, you can actually change the DNA of a property. You can repurpose a property, you can refurbish a property, you can demolish, you can rebuild. And there are things, so what you need to do as practitioners, you need to be able to look at, say, where is the opportunity going to be in being able to repurpose or to do that? The issue is on health, which means compliance. Teach your landlords how to go about getting compliance, not just fresh air and things, but you need your compliance is about fire regulations. It's about ingress or egress. It's about how they get to work safely. And these are things that, you know, there's a lot of information out there, and you don't have to get the information overload. You take what is actually appropriate for your particular area. And I think that what will actually happen, it's also a really good time for realtors, brokers, and real estate agents, whatever domain you're in, to look at your actual charges and your service charges and look at what value, if you're going to build this value proposition by being able to put things together, I think it's a really good opportunity to go ahead and look at your fees and say, well, right, there's been pressure downwards in certain areas. What about a bit of pressure upwards? And if you're in a position whereby you're able to do things and look at it, look at your property owner and the property, and then start to think, how can we make a good return for these people? And the return is by occupancy. And whether the person occupies it themselves or they say, we will buy it and we want a tenant. Learn how to make a partnership between a landlord and a tenant. It is not just a legal agreement, because what's happened, if you go back in history, you go back to 1960s and the 1970s, the kings and the queens of property weren't the landlords, right? They were actually the buyers and they were the tenants. So look at the changing dynamics of how you can do that, because what you can do is then that helps you then probably go ahead and put deals together. So I think from my point of view, I'm quite positive about where it's going to go. But if the industry, the real estate industry doesn't take on board and change a little bit in their approach to commercial industrial, you're probably going to get left behind a little bit. So I think it's a matter of making sure you bring that, I call it the A grade game, to the table. And what we're saying with Ray and what we have learned from my time in real estate is there are many, many experts. But I will say this to you, that was taught very early in the piece. With an expert, X equals the unknown quantity and a spurt is a drip under pressure. And I thank you very much for the opportunity of being able to speak here today. Orange County I know very well. I helped manage a relationship with some companies there many years ago, and I have some very favourite places. And one of my favourite places in the world is where I used to drive down the road to San Diego. So I thank you from Melbourne, Australia.
That's been great, Frank. Thank you so much. Do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Are you doing your thing?
Well, first of all, we have a few questions here in the chat box. What is the website, or what are the websites where someone could search for properties in Australia?
Well, the best website is firstnational.com.au. That's the best place to go to.
First National.
.com.au.
Thank you. Thank you. And there is a question from Antonio. Does Australia still have the highest high net worth individuals with net inflow?
Well, probably not us three gentlemen on here today. We're just humble servants of the people. But yes, Australia has a very high worth people coming to Australia. Yes, our taxation system, our banking system. Yeah.
So we are learning a lot today, and I thought I had a question here about basically relationship, or I guess approach to tenants and landlords. So does Australia favor tenants in general?
We're similar to the United States. We have lots of state legislation. If you had to draw a line, does the legislation favour tenants or landlords? It probably just favours tenants, but as Frank said, a good landlord is always well rewarded. So, you know, the percentage of delinquent tenants would be exactly the same as in your country. Stupid people exist everywhere, but no, it's very similar.
Of course. Another question here, does Australia have a foreign tax for non-residents?
Yes, it's inconsequential though. It's like a $5,000 levy if you're buying a property, and there's a couple of the higher ones than that. But you know, we're a small country of population. We need capital inflow to come from other sources. We've done that ever since we've been a country 120 years ago. So our government's very favourable with the inflow of capital, because with only a population of 25 million, we don't have the base to raise it ourselves. So foreign investment is well regarded.
Thank you. Thank you. Someone asked to type in the chat box. We will do it. Let me just get going with what we planned, and one of us will type the website in the chat box. So with this, I would like to say big thank you to you guys, to you gentlemen. It was a very, very insightful information and learning experience. And let's take a look at our game. Again, I would like to remind you, please post your answers in the chat box and just write it in one chat. And with this, let's share the screen. So our 2 questions for this segment: what is a great Australian dream? And what are the current interest rates in Australia? And they see answers are coming in very quickly. Oh, I like those dynamics. What about you, Ray?
I'm very impressed that people were paying attention. It's always hard over being online, whether people are on their phones watching The Simpsons or having a cup of coffee. But it looks like people were paying attention. So we're, on a Friday morning here in Australia, we're very excited, everyone. So after a long day of being online.
Well, we have a very, very serious crowd here. They all are here to learn, of course, not just to get the $50 gift cards. Okay, I think I'm gonna go to the next slide. We really enjoyed having everyone on this call. I would like to say thank you again. We are not finishing yet. The names of the winners are coming up. I just wanted to remind everyone, the best way to stay connected with Orange County Realtors Global Business Alliance is through our Facebook page, which you can find under Orange County Realtors Global Business Alliance. Please like us. And if you would like to, if you have any questions or would like to connect with us with some specific information, please email to either Ronald Pascual Jr., and you have the email address right now on the screen, or Yami Martinez, who is our vice chair, or myself, Alicia Drozdova. And of course, we always like likes. Please like us on Facebook. We will be, we are still considering our trade mission to Canada. It is right now on hold due to the pandemic. However, please stay tuned, and we will definitely be informing and posting information as we learn a little bit more about what we can and what we cannot do in 2021. And at this point, I would like to give it back to Bob Hartman. Bob, do we have our winners?
I wish I could say that I do have that. I've sent a request off to Ron. Oh, he does? He sent it to me. I have it now. Okay, so I can read the winners.
Hold on. Let's do the drum roll. Let's add a little bit of excitement.
The drum roll. All right. The first winner. You have to be present, still on the call here on Zoom to win.
And respond to us in the chat box so that we know you are really there.
Yes. Diane McDonald. The second winner, Mary Jane Cambria. Keaton Josh Fahaba. No, I'm sorry about the name, but it's Keaton. David Potter. Karen Rosenbaum. Mary Rampone.
Hold on, that's more than 5.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Everyone's
I am not reading the circles. I'm just going through all the names. Okay, so Diane McDonald, Mary Jane Cambria, Karen Rosenbaum, Catherine Miyoshi, and David Potter.
Mary Jane.
Diane, Mary Jane, Karen, Catherine, and David.
You have 6. How come you have 6?
There's 5 names I've just named. Diane, Mary Jane, Karen, Catherine, and David.
Okay, so we have Diana's here. Woohoo! David Potter is really here. Thank you, David. We really appreciate your dedication and patience.
Mary Jane's still stuck on Gilligan's Island.
Mary Jane, let me see if Mary Jane is here. I know she was here just recently, but I do not see her in the chat box. And I think we...
Karen Rosenbaum, Catherine Miyoshi. All right, I think we... Gentlemen from Australia, thank you so very much.
Pleasure. Look forward to seeing you in person as soon as we can, Bob, and all our friends over there. Be well, be safe, and thank you for the opportunity today.
We are going to really look you guys up when you're back in the United States for NAR convention. We are having that virtually here. Those of us who get to be a participant in that coming up at the first part of November. I've already signed up to be a part of that. Thank you for your presentations. Zola, thank you very much for your presentation and participation. You've spent a long day with us. I think
Thank you.
Antonio went away, which is understandable. He's in Italy. And Tina, you were just enthusiastic. I was surprised that you weren't up on your sofa back there jumping around, but you were very enthusiastic and
Thank you.
terrific to have on with us.
Honored to be here to share.
Thank you all. And David, it sounds like your area is just beautiful. If it's anything like Santa Barbara, it must be. I live in Laguna. The ocean's right out there, so I understand what you're talking about.
Yep, sounds very similar. Perfect.
Very much. So I don't know what happened to Alessia, but she's on the phone, and maybe she's getting this all organized, or maybe I did not do something correctly, but I read what was here. I have 5 names that are circled. So you guys can take off and leave, David and Frank, and Tina and Zola. We will take care of paperwork here.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you,
I'm so
team.
sorry, I need to make an announcement. So we were looking at the chat box. There was some confusion over the names. Bob, can you please repeat the names that you have?
Okay. It went away. Hang on a second.
Let's intrigue everyone.
The names I have: Diane McDonald.
Congratulations, Diane, you are one of the winners.
Mary Jane Cambria.
Congratulations, Mary Jane Cambria.
Karen Rosenbaum.
Congratulations, Karen.
Catherine Miyoshi.
Congratulations, Catherine Miyoshi.
And David Potter.
Thank you very much. Congratulations, David Potter. We have it straight, yes.
We have it correct.
We have it correct.
I just started, I didn't know what the circles were all about. I was just reading. All right. Thank you all. And Zola, it's been a pleasure. Bye.
No, thank you. Yes, thank you all. Thank you, our panelists. Thank you to all the participants. It was a pleasure to spend 3 hours with everyone today.
We had a good time.
Thank you,
Bob. Everyone.
I enjoyed Tina's enthusiasm. All right. Thank you.